Thank you for attending the presentation, and thank you for the organizers for such a lovely conference so far. So as was previously mentioned, I am the project manager, grant coordinator, and researcher for the Canadian-Irish Migration Preservation Network's Preserving and Showcasing Irish Heritage in Quebec project. So I'll tell you a little bit about that today. It's undeniable, of course, that Irish migration has left a profound impact on the cultural and historical landscape of Canada. Within the province of Quebec, the first landscape many Irish immigrants encountered on their journeys to North America, the legacy of Irish immigration remains visible in cemeteries, settlement sites, memorials, and community institutions. While many of these sites are known locally to the members of the communities in which they reside, their historical connections to transnational networks of migration aren't often discussed. Despite the fact that thousands of Irish immigrants have settled in the territory that now encompasses the modern province of Quebec, their historic roles as settlers, builders, community leaders, and cultural contributors are often scattered across local histories and remain difficult to visualize as a part of a broader migration story. This presentation will be examining how digital mapping can be used to document and interpret the transnational dimensions of Irish migration across Quebec through the development of the Canadian-Irish Migration Preservation Network's, or CIMPN's, Irish Mile Digital Interactive Map. The project brings together archival documentation to map sites connected to Irish settlements and commemoration across the province. By visually linking locations like cemeteries, historic settlements, and memorial sites, the Irish Mile reveals patterns of both movement and settlements that connect Ireland and Quebec to other destinations across Canada and North America at large. The Irish Mile Digital Interactive Map is a part of the larger initiative, the Preserving and Showcasing Irish Heritage in Quebec project, which has been financially supported by the Secrétariat aux relations avec les Québécois d'expression anglaise, or the SRQEA. This project at large aims to preserve and promote Irish heritage in Quebec through a wide-reaching digital and educational initiative. The project's primary goal, as was mentioned earlier, is to create an interactive map of Irish sites, including monuments, cemeteries, museums, buildings, trails, and historical markers. This fully bilingual map compiles historical documents, photographs, and oral interviews in order to document the historical presence of Irish communities across the province. However, the map accompanies the CIMPN's fully bilingual site as well, which serves as a central hub for the project's activities. On top of hosting the Irish Mile map, the website acts as a digital news board of sorts and archival repository for Irish organizations across the province. In this way, the CIMPN hopes that the Preserving and Showcasing Irish Heritage in Quebec project will connect historical Irish communities throughout Quebec and even beyond. Finally, the prioritization of public education will round out this project. Through offering educational outreach, hosting events, and publishing newsletters about the project's development, the CIMPN intends to highlight Irish immigration's place in building contemporary Quebec's rich and diverse cultural identity. In this sense, my very presentation today is vital to the CIMPN's goal of sharing cutting-edge heritage tools, which use accessible mapping softwares in order to democratize the historical research process for all members of the community, from academics to students, descendants, and beyond. The Irish Mile Interactive Mapping Project was first launched on January 27, 2026, and continues to expand. Named after the old unit of Irish measurement, or the modern equivalent to about 1.27 miles, the Irish Mile was dedicated to more than this forgotten measurement of distance. It was also named for the vital, if not occasionally historically forgotten, impressions left by Irish immigrants on the land, the language, and the culture of the communities they helped to shape. Built from historical documents, photographs, and oral interviews, the fully bilingual interactive map is constantly in development, with several dozen heritage sites having been added since its initial launch date. Our methodological approach to creating this map was based on two independent research streams, accessing primary sources and calling for community input. The CIMPN was founded on an interest in the ability of genealogical research to aid in the preservation of public heritage spaces, such as cemeteries. When the founding members of the CIMPN first began to conduct their own genealogical research, their connection to the first Irish settlers they encountered and their interest in other family stories propelled their preservation work forward. This interest led to retrieving, restoring, and preserving a large number of discarded headstones from the 19th century located in the St. Columban Cemetery, which we will return to later. This interest in genealogical study is at the core of the CIMPN's approach to researching sites for the Irish Mile. After all, a physical space is only as important as the people who have or continue to inhabit it. Therefore, it was vital for the researchers and the digital map development team to prioritize the history of individuals, families, and communities when researching Irish heritage sites to add to the map. In terms of source identification, the CIMPN's team of researchers and volunteers used a mix of historical sources, such as toponymical surveys, censuses, cemetery records, and others, in order to establish the location of settlements across Quebec and reveal consistent patterns of Irish migration. However, the CIMPN also encouraged members of the public to reach out to us with information regarding settlements with a historical Irish presence. This permitted us to expand our research to sites in the province that may have had little to no formal academic research conducted on them, but lived on through the oral histories of the descendants of those original settlers. Currently, we have 17 distinct site types on our map. Stay with me here for a moment. Towns, churches, monuments, museums, parks, trails, historic houses, plaques, schools, cemeteries, statues, historic sites, mausoleums, spotlights, traditions, heritage routes, and historic figures. With accessibility being one of the primary tenets of the Irish Mile Mapping Project, the CIMPN's choice to adopt the MapMe software was due to its ease of navigation for both our map developers and visitors to the website. Each site, as you can see, appears with a unique location tag associated to the category to which the site belongs. Users can explore the map generally by zooming in and out of it and hovering their cursors over a location to see the site's name. Clicking the tag will then reveal all of the media associated with the site, including the geographical location, photos, and a short write-up exploring its Irish history. However, for more specific searches, you're able to use two separate search techniques. If a user wants to explore every single item belonging to a category in the map, they can simply click on one or many category options from the drop-down list you can see. On the other hand, if a user has a specific term they have in mind, such as Quebec City, they can type that term into the search bar on the left-hand side of the screen, and every single instance of that term appearing will appear in the map. You can also use a combination of these search methods. For example, you can choose a category such as towns and add a search term such as famine, and this will reveal a number of towns in Quebec whose pattern of immigration aligns with the period around the mid-19th century or the famine years. Our research, alongside the sites provided to us by members of the public, revealed that patterns of Irish settlement in the province were incredibly varied. As Quebec historically demonstrated religious tolerance towards both Catholic and Protestant citizens, Irish immigrants of diverse religious, linguistic, and economic backgrounds settled in both rural and urban areas in order to take advantage of the province's rich farmlands and cityscapes alike. The historical appearance of mixed French and Irish communities can still be detected through toponyms or place names, which have preserved the interactions and cohabitations between Irish immigrants and French settlers. For example, the parish and cemetery that I mentioned earlier, St. Columban, were named in honor of the Irish saint. However, the contemporary spelling of the city, with an O instead of a U, reflects French spelling conventions and the modern French-speaking population. The CIMPN's study of St. Columban and its integration into the Irish Mile digital map is a formidable case study which displays how digital mapping technology can aid in tracking, preserving, and showcasing transnational networks of migration to the public. The St. Columban Parish and Cemetery hold a profound historical and cultural significance, particularly for the Irish Catholic community that settled in the area of Lower Canada in the early 19th century. The roots of the parish can be traced back to about the 1820s, when Irish migrants arrived in Montreal and gradually moved to rural areas like St. Columban in order to establish farming communities. Following years of political unrest, famine, and economic hardship, many Irish families sought a new life in Canada. Encouraged first by Father Richard Jackson and followed by Father Patrick Phelan, both belonging to the Sulpician Order, settlers from Kilkenny, Carlow, Kildare, Tipperary, and other counties began arriving in the new region known as St. Columban. Father Patrick Phelan, a native of Kilkenny, named the new parish St. Columban in order to reflect the monastic spirit of renewal, learning, faith, and resilience. His decision to name the city St. Columban was deeply intentional. It connected the hardships of faith of the Irish settlers with the long-standing legacy of Irish spirituality and missionary efforts. By 1825, there were about 250 Irish immigrants living in the region. However, renewed migration to the area during the mid-19th century can also be traced thanks to surviving letters between settlers in St. Columban and their family networks back home in Ireland. Thomas Barrett, who had left the village of Ardnaglass in County Sligo during the 1830s, received a desperate letter from his youngest daughter, Mary, who feared for the survival of herself, her husband, and her children due to the destruction brought on by the famine. In one correspondence with her father, Mary described her community suffering from starvation, ending her letter with a desperate plea. Quote, "For God's sake, take us out of poverty and don't let us die with the hunger." By March 1847, Thomas Barrett contacted local Reverend John Falvey. Though Barrett nor Falvey could afford to pay for the passage of the Barrett family to Canada, Falvey soon wrote a letter of his own, pleading with local politician Charles John Forbes to intervene in the case of the Barrett family. After a visit from Thomas Barrett directly, Falvey wrote to Forbes, and in a stunning display of political dedication to the parish, on April 23, 1847, Forbes managed to connect with the Governor General of British North America himself. By May of 1847, a mere 2 months after Thomas Barrett received his daughter's initial letter, the Rush family, including Mary, her husband Michael, and their 3 children, arrived in New York City. Soon after, the family would reunite in Quebec. The Barrett family is historically remarkable due to its display of between Ireland and Canada, which facilitated the migration of thousands of immigrants to Quebec. However, the addition of their story into a digital mapping software, which visualizes its relationship to other Irish settlements, can help researchers, genealogists, and descendants alike draw the often intangible links between people, places, spaces, and historical documents. Furthermore, being able to visualize St. Columban alongside other towns with major historical Irish population makes migration patterns chartable on a physical and temporal scale. Finally, the CIMPN's approach of combining both formal historical research alongside submissions from the public helps democratize this digitization process, allowing small towns like St. Columban share spaces with massive Irish immigration hubs like Quebec City and Montreal. At the time of writing and presenting this presentation, 170 heritage sites have been logged onto the Irish Mile digital interactive map. However, the successes of this project have not been limited to the digital sphere. Due to the CIMPN's dedicated work developing and promoting the Preserving and Showcasing Irish Heritage in Quebec project, the Global Irish Famine Way, which was launched in 2024 at the Irish Immigration Museum, honored St. Columban with a pair of bronze shoes. This historic initiative uses a physical pair of bronze shoes as markers to honor the journey of Irish immigrants during the Great Famine of 1847 and to recognize their resilience and contributions to the lands in which they settled. The CIMPN's research work on the community of St. Columban revealed the burial of 2 Irish famine victims, John and Mary Phelan, aged 4 and 2 respectively, who died in 1847. They are buried in the historic section of the St. Columban Cemetery. The nonprofit's work on this heritage site and others opens the doors for dozens of more historically forgotten Irish sites across the province to be brought to public attention and honored for their contributions to Quebec history. The Preserving and Showcasing Irish Heritage in Quebec project has also connected the CIMPN with various institutions across the province. In October 2025, the nonprofit collaborated with students at Concordia's School of Irish Studies to provide them with a hands-on tutorial on headstone cleaning and cemetery preservation. Furthermore, members of the CIMPN team and volunteers from the School of Irish Studies walked in 4 St. Patrick's Day parades across Ontario and Quebec this past green season. Perhaps most significantly, the CIMPN has assisted in mapping the Trinity Cemetery in Gore Township and performed cemetery cleanings in Quebec City's own Beth Israel Ohev Shalom Cemetery. We hope the Preserving and Showcasing Irish Heritage in Quebec project will connect us with further community heritage sites in the future in order for our work to help preserve the future of diverse heritage sites that have helped shape Quebec history. The future of the Irish Mile is looking very bright. On June 3rd, 2026, the CIMPN's very first bilingual oral interview with historian Ryan Young, conducted by researcher Samara O'Gorman, was published on the Irish Mile map alongside our site marker for Montreal's historic Simon Fraser House. This summer, we intend to publish several more oral interviews on Irish heritage sites in the province, both well-known and hidden gems. By the end of the summer season, we hope to have 200 heritage sites logged on the digital map, with many more exciting entries to come. In summary, the Irish Mile Digital Interactive Map is a tool which can assist in visualizing the transatlantic connections between Irish settlements in Quebec and the origin points of the immigrants who populated them. The documentation of these various sites not only traces the geographic spread of Irish migrants across the province, but also analyzes ways in which diaspora communities have preserved memory, identity, and belonging through acts of commemoration and storytelling. Furthermore, it permits individuals and communities of Irish descent to take active roles in describing their communities and qualifying their hyphenated identities as Irish Quebecers and Irish Canadians within the broader historical record. In this sense, digital mapping can serve as a tool for both heritage preservation and public education, all while contributing to a wider understanding of historical Irish migration patterns and contemporary diaspora networks in Canada. Thank you.